Hello, everybody. It is um, June 29th at 10 o'clock a.m. EST. You're watching the Dovecote episode 37 with Aaron Lim. Aaron, welcome, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello. Hi. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Aaron Lim. I'm a game designer, game maker based in Petaling Jaya in Malaysia. I made games like An Altogether Different River and Spectres of Brocken, and many other games that you can find on my itch page.
Yes,
And
let me get that up.
yeah, that's me.
Uh, I'm just realizing that I have one of your games open, but I don't have your itch page open. Um, but
I also want to shout out. I also organize a fortnightly playtesting event online called Playtest Zero. We meet up every other Tuesday and every other Thursday, Friday, depending on where in the world you are, and we playtest games together online.
hell yeah. Um,
Mhm.
Is there a site or something that I can direct folks to for that? Because that sounds awesome.
Uh, yeah. Just because we there's been spates of like Discord bots and stuff, so we don't post the link
Oh yeah,
publicly.
fair.
But if you DM myself, I think the other person who can give out um invites is Thomas Manuel. If you just DM me. Or send me a message somewhere on social media or email me at aaron.jf.lim@gmail.com. I'll send you an invite. No worries. It's just yeah, we just don't want
Hell yeah.
like bots. Yeah.
What was the email
Yeah.
again?
Aaron.jf.lim. J for July, F for February.
Hell yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. If you want to know about that, if you want to playtest some
Mhm.
cool games, get in there. Um. Yeah. I've been trying to get into a habit of this because um what's the word? I feel like it's uh my brain is not working. I suppose for context for folks who are watching the VOD, if you're watching this live, you'll know. It is early for me. It is early in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
in the eastern United States. Uh,
Yes. Thank you for
s-
waking up early because of the time
it's okay.
difference.
I had a psychiatric appointment anyways, so like I
Mhm.
had to get up early anyways. But nonetheless, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be up early. But yeah, my point is I gave an altogether different river a read because I was like, okay, so what do I own that Aaron's made? Uh, and that was the one that I had remembered skimming it at one point, and I kind of did a deeper read today, and
Mhm.
today and yesterday, um, and I have some bits that I'd love to talk about because I think it's a really great game.
Oh yeah.
Um, I guess first, could you kind of tell folks about an altogether different river?
Yeah. I've had a lot of practice recently. So An Altogether Different River is a collaborative storytelling game for 2 to 4 players, and it is about making a town or a place together, a hometown, where and you get to see how it changes over time. You see it change through the eyes of people who have left it and returned, and people who stayed throughout. And yeah, it is focused on a place, but it is also focused on the relationships between the people, um, um, and the place, and to each other, and like how all of those relationships get filtered through placeness and like being from somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, something that I find really interesting. Not to do the thing where I compare all all place making games to the Quiet Year, but I think it is like
Mhm.
a useful place of comparison just for like how ubiquitous it is, right? Um,
Yes.
I really like as you kind of said in that description, like this is a game about people in people returning or people being from a place, and so you
Mhm.
don't have you lean into the kind of characterfulness of it. You lean into the you are playing a character as much as you're playing this place, and I think that's really
Mhm.
wonderful. Um, for this game specifically. Um,
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious, like, what was the kind of the kind of arc that led you towards making that choice?
Yeah, so I guess it comes back from to how the game came about as well. And I mentioned it in, if you have a copy of the game, I mentioned it in the introduction, and probably in the designer commentary as well. Probably, I have no idea. I don't remember what I wrote for the designer commentary, so I don't know if I contradict myself. No, I didn't. The person I am today is not the same as the person I was back then. So my view of truth is what I remember it being,
Right.
as it is right now. And so so to say that the game came about because I moved back home after living in so I'm living in Petaling Jaya in Malaysia right now, and I lived in Melbourne, Australia for about close to 15 years before moving back moving back right before the pandemic happened. So that was some fortunate timing, I guess. Um, and so I made this game as kind of a reflection on that process of like moving back and grappling with like what it meant to go back to a place, and even to like figure out who you are, in sense of like, when people ask you where you're from, trying to give an answer to that is difficult. I made two games about this actually. So they're kind of paired games. The other game was called Far From Home, which is in the Homebound anthology, which is an anthology about games, and which is games anthology about home and uh, like journeying home, right?
Yeah.
And So when I made the game, it was always I always thought of it not as a world building game first, but always as a game about moving home first, which then focuses on like um the people, right? Like, or the emotions and the connections between people, rather than just a place. And then because you kind of need to, you can't go home if you don't know what home looks like. And so the world building, town building part of it is kind of like, is there in service of the idea of like what does it mean for a person to move home.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like. I think
Mm.
the human emphasis there is really well. It doesn't necessarily have to be human, but the the the
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
emphasis there is really
Mhm.
wonderful. Um, that actually, hang on. I need to bring in my birds, but I need to bring in the first bird, Intrero, the interview bird. Okay. Um, I've done my due diligence on that front. So something that I kind of related to that, the idea of kind of non-human uh, stuff.
Mhm.
Something that I really like about the book is early on. Um, I think because it's thematically so like uh, you know, uh, to use a turn of phrase, close to home, right? It's
Mhm.
it's 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 kind of grounded. Um, I think like I could imagine there being an urge to go very like very realistic, and not to say that that's a bad thing, uh,
Mhm.
but I really like how immediately within like the first couple pages you drop the cover, which has this sort of mix of like hyperfuturism and um kind of more kind of mundane uh architecture, and then
Mhm.
immediately there's the town then now section where it's like some of the options are like space, void, clouds, like things that you wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I suppose clouds could be, fairly mundane. And then there's a,
Mhm.
a picture with like some sick ass Treasure Planet spaceships. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of curious, like, what was the thought process with like, or the thought process and production process of like kind of infusing those first couple pages with fantasy. Was there any like conflict about whether you wanted to go in that direction?
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple of reasons for that, and I'll also mention that the art on the cover and all the interior art was done by Vanessa Tang, who is a Malaysian illustrator based in Malacca. You should check her stuff out. I think there's links and stuff from the
Yeah,
itch
let me
page
try
as
and
well to her stuff. So I really am very lucky to be able to work with her and get like that aesthetic vision to work for the book. And a part of that is like, so this game is actually very heavily like it owes a lot to Downfall
hmm,
by Caroline Hobbs. Not just because I basically stole the Haven creation mechanic inspired by directly from Downfall, um, um, but just in terms of like how it uses the structure of game to like, look, this can be a really like grounded and very human, very human in the sense of like it's trying to like look at what could be um um what could be potentially like universal, quote unquote. I don't really like the word, but like
yeah,
to try and like think of something that connects us as people. There are common experiences that you can connect through that. But sometimes playing games that are quote unquote too real gets people to put their guard up because they can see the the connections to, to real life too easily. And so sometimes uh, it is the candy coating around the medicine. I don't like that that metaphor either. But like, sometimes it is worthwhile exploring things from different perspectives. Like to use science fiction and fantasy to get at um real things without the baggage of the real getting in the way sometimes, right?
yeah,
And
totally agree.
It's really interesting because so I mentioned why I've been recently very familiar with giving this pitch
Hmm.
is because I recently was at the Asian Board Games Festival Malaysia and in Penang a couple of weekends ago now. um and I demoed this game to the public, and to a public that are not familiar with role playing games and are not familiar with collaborative storytelling games, even. And it was a really interesting experience to pitch this game to them, and the way you kind of like have to very quickly judge the vibes of the people you're demoing to and pitching to, and figure out whether they would be interested in seeing the game as, hey, a way to like deal with very real human kind of like connection things, or as like a fun thing to exercise their creativity, right? um not to say that they wouldn't respond to it if I change if I did not adjust the pitch. But it's about figuring out like how to get people excited about like the act of play, and like what avenues um uh would kind of like help lower their defenses to kind of like be creative in this mode. And I like that there's the option of there being, if you want to to like play the mid 2000s indie film about like disaffected young adult going home, or the other way I pitched it was every year during Merdeka, during like the National Day things, or during Chinese New Year or Hari Raya, when it's about like people going home to their hometown to like for the holidays, right? I
Yeah,
guess the equivalent would be like Thanksgiving or
yeah,
Christmas in the
Christmas.
US.
Yeah,
um and they always like the big companies always put out these sappy ads about like, like young people going home and like like seeing how their family members are like getting older and things are changing and all of that. So I pitched that's the other touchstone that I used to pitch the game as well. Like, hey, you know those ads? Do you want to play those ads?
That's really fun.
um, yeah, but the idea of like it being not just about that, but also being about like you can make weird shit with it. Like recently during the demo, like someone made like uh uh a town that was you're sitting, you build a city in the clouds and the cloud goes around eating other clouds,
Oh,
right?
that's
And
fun.
that's fun. Yeah, and that's really fun, and like gives you some variety, gives you a way to like talk about this thing while also letting you kind of like like play around with things, right? Like games, like I think play is like really important. Like it's really important to have quote unquote like serious games and games that like say something or like have something that they that 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 has a purpose or like has a message or whatever, right? Like that's cool. Um, but I really value playfulness in games as well, and so play should be an avenue that's available to you. Not to say that all games need to be fun, but
Hmm.
you know, like even like dealing with like difficult subjects can be playing with them if you know that like you have safety gloves on, right? You can kind of like poke at the wound a little bit without getting fully hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, or like pick at the
I
scab and and play around with it. You know, where maybe the ache and the pain is in control, under your control, right? Um, so I think it's I value having that kind of like play and creativity in games, and the kind of like little uh secret here is that that image in the front of the book that came from one of our playtests, right? That
oh,
was the
nice.
town that we made. We made a town about uh, at the top of the mountain with a tree that reached to the stars.
Ooh,
And yeah, so that was that's just an homage to that.
very cool.
Um, it has a crazier one where we did our town was inside a star beetle.
That's sick. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Um, I think
yeah.
like I think you're hitting on something really crucial here, which is like you can only hope that people will discover that heart through play, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think about my friend Jay Dragon, who's working on Seven Part
Hmm.
Pact, which is a game about funny wizards, but also like about how how deeply abusive the like uh how deeply abusive various patriarchal systems are. Let's say I
Hmm.
won't I won't identify which system Jay is commenting on through that book, but you can probably figure it out if you have you know if you read through it. Um, but like uh, Jay has said as much as like yeah, people are probably mostly going to use this for fun wizard times, and like that's kind of okay. But you can only hope that they find that heart through the play, and I think that's really wonderful. Uh, I
Yeah.
sorry, do you have any other more thoughts on that? I have one more thing I want to ask about, but I'm happy to.
Oh, only that like there's a reason I made it a game and not an essay.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Um. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Like sometimes you, when you even if you want to get a message through, like why choose a game,
Mhm.
right? And like part of that when I was making the game is that like I know games. I love making games and I know how to make them. And so I can speak the language of games and try and get across something about what I'm trying to articulate through games, which is a medium of expression that I am familiar with, right? So that's one thing. But does that thing need to be a game, or what does being a game and a game that can be played versus like a lyric game, or well, simplifying here because like lyric games can be played, but like a game that is intended to be played in the traditional way, right? What does making it a game give to that thing rather than making it something else, right? And sometimes the answer is like, yeah, this might not need to be a game, right? Or this might work better as a different sort of game or as a different sort of a game-like thing. But sometimes it's a game for a reason where it can reach sometimes because you want it to have that reach, sometimes because it's using the medium of games in a particular way. But like it's worth thinking about, like, if you want a game to be played, what does play bring to the thing that you're trying to do, right?
Yeah,
And that comes with letting go of the idea that you can straight up like say this game is about this, right? And letting players make the game um be about what they need it to be about, and let them play with it.
yeah, and there's a lot of
Mm.
joy and hurt that comes from that, right? Like at least in my
Mhm.
experience, uh,
Yeah.
that there's a lot to be gained and a lot to be lost from telling people, here's my precious little thing, enjoy it, do what you
Mm.
will with it. Um, but yeah, it's wonderful. Kind of on the same topic. I one of the things that I really liked was at one point in the game, in play advice, you you just say reach out via social media or email, which I thought was so lovely. Um, I'm like that's such like a uh what's the word? You're taking the game from such like a living angle. I feel like with that with that like
Mm.
offering, and I'm kind of curious, like, was there any deliberation that kind of came before including that in the game?
um yeah, I think a part of it is so I lurked. So I never was a part of like the kind of like the story games or like Google Plus era of like indie game design, right?
Right,
Or the forums era, um, or even with blogs, right? And I looked around a lot on those, and like it was like for all the issues that like that era had, it also felt very vibrant when there was dialogue and communication between when people were making games and like making games in response to each other, right? um and so this is kind of like the workaround of like, oh, I don't think we have that anymore, or the way we have it is different, right? Because of the way social media is structured, because of the way um uh uh like production is structured
right.
nowadays, right? um and so like that was my little like a call to like, hey, I would love to for other people to be in dialogue with me about this game. And like I don't have a blog or anything. So it's
Right.
that it's either social media or email.
That's
So if you want to
wonderful.
talk to me about it, like, yeah, that's how you get in contact.
Yeah. So if you want to like make up, sorry, I was about to make a real. I'll make this joke. It's fine. If
Mm.
you want to come up with a really disingenuous thing that Aaron is saying through his work and email him about it, don't. Only nice emails, please. Um, uh, but yeah, no, I thought that was really wonderful. I also like that it's like it's a useful link in the digital version. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to ask about an altogether different river. I thought it was a wonderful book. Do you have
Oh, thank
any
you.
things you want to mention about it?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I sometimes forget to mention, and sometimes I've heard back about it a couple of times. Um, is that if you buy the game on itch, it comes with a designer commentary version.
Hmm.
So that comes with little and it's an annotated PDF that doesn't work on all PDF readers, but if it does, then you can see my notes on all this design stuff that went into it. And yeah, so there's that. And you should also check out Homebound and Far From Home, which is a companion piece to this.
Yeah, let me
Um,
see if I can find
mm.
that. Uh, if you have it, I would also gladly. I just want to throw a link in chat.
Oh yeah, 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 sure.
Um,
Give me 1 second.
and do, 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 do.
So here's the collection that has all the games.
I noticed this was a Zine Quest game, which is really funny and also like reassuring to me because my Zine Quest game, which I'm still working on getting out physically, Biotraffication, is
Mm.
I would say almost exactly the same size. It's also a 28 pager. So I'm glad I'm glad there's some 28 page zine solidarity. Uh,
Wait, why are you, do you think it should be shorter, longer? What's
no,
the
I feel like I see a lot that are shorter,
mm.
but also I'm like I don't think it should be shorter. Is I also wrote one that's about that length, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see another that's that long. I truly have no sense of like how long zines should be. I have only made one, so
Yeah, yeah.
if anyone has opinions on that in chat, let me know what's the ideal zine length. We have Aaron King in chat, or at least we did.
Oh,
So
hi, Aaron.
Aaron might have takes on that. Uh, but yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. I guess I'll kind of go through my normal rotunda of questions.
Mhm.
I guess to start, are there any games that you are currently playing, reading, looking at, thinking about that you'd like to talk about?
Um, yeah, it's been a really busy month for me.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to play that much except for the regular play testing. Um, I think the last let me just quickly check. So the last game I read was one I read for book club, which was Paris Gondo's uh, what's the life-changing magical inventorying game.
Uh,
I think, and that was really interesting because that had an interesting choice to start with a play example first. Let me try and get the specific name.
is it Paris Gondo, the life-saving magic of inventory?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I knew there was inventorying and
I have this
magic
thing three
lifesaving.
times. That's wonderful. I love how many bundles I've thrown my money behind over the years and how many
Yeah,
TTRPGs I now own.
yep, yep.
This is
Yeah, and
lovely.
it's interesting. It's an interesting approach to teaching a game because it starts off with a long play, a long example of play, that basically kind of like runs through the whole rules of the game before it even gets to the rules, right?
Hmm.
And that's and it couches this decision in like saying like it comes from like looking at some of the um uh I think it's from the Japanese actual replay, like written replays, right?
Hmm.
As a way that a lot of that I don't know a lot, but like some Japanese players get into it in the same way that we would, instead of not instead, but like that people might watch an actual play or listen to an actual play before reading the rulebook just to like get the vibe of how the game runs, right? Which I've done before, right? I've definitely like there are some games that I've listened to, like the one shot episode or the party of one episode. It's like, oh, okay, that's how it works in play, and then I'll go read the rules, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how they decided to get that started, and I thought that was really interesting. That was a really interesting choice, and also something that was like not confronting, but like that was something that was like, it made me really think about what the role of the example of play is, and like what's the best way to like treat it. Maybe not the best, but like different ways to like treat the example of play. Because when I've been writing my own stuff, like I dread writing the example of play.
Yeah, I'm not a big
um,
example play fan.
yeah, and I tend to skip them. And then that made me question why, right? Like after reading through this as like something like, okay, I committed to read this for book club, and also like just to like take this um on not face value, but like to meet this game where it is, which is its decision to present the game in the example of play first, right, rather than with the
Yeah.
rules. um and that's really interesting to try and think through, like why am I averse to the example of play. Partly it is like, I for myself, I know that like I am a um like I didn't come to tabletop RPGs first. I came mainly from like the board game side of things. I'm a big big board game fan, and I wanted to design board games first. I still do, and I still design board game like things. Um, but that has a specific kind of way of like thinking about rules and like writing systems and rules, right? So I'm very familiar with that mode of writing, but not and like technical writing, right, for my day job and stuff, and like related kind of things of like writing clear and technical is something that I practice. But writing evocatively, or like writing dialogue for like examples of play, that I'm not as comfortable with, right? And that's one aspect of it. um but there's also the thing about myself, about even though I have um listened to podcast, I don't think I've actually ever watched an example of play, but I've listened to podcasts about games, playing games, and like tried to like get the vibe from them. But I have not tried to learn from an example of play, and like why is that, right?
Right.
What's the barrier behind that for me, and like figuring out, because that is something I think um uh is interesting and important on like how we teach games. um and if and it's mainly about like how I shouldn't be afraid of the example of play. Right. And should, thinking about and re-examining my relationship with the example of the written example of play. Yeah.
Yeah.
so
I
so, so, so
Oh yeah,
so
sorry.
sorry, just to finish my
Yeah, go
sentence.
ahead.
So that's why reading that was really interesting to see someone make that decision and like go through with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also like I'm very much on the same page where I looked at that and I was like, this scares me. Like I I I'm immediately like very anxious around it. I think like I naturally skip examples of play. Like I don't read
Mhm,
examples of play. Like this is a confession. Eclipse, the tabletop RPG reader and liker. Like if you put an example of play in your book, I am probably not going to
mhm,
read
mhm,
it. Unless it contains crucial information or I'm confused by a mechanic. Um,
mhm.
but the looking at this, I'm like, maybe I should be reading examples of play. Because like, yeah, there's such a the idea of doing design through play examples is really interesting.
Yeah.
Neat. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially when we talk about like a lot of like tabletop RPGs, transmission of play culture is not through the rules documents, but through like people teaching each other to play. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
very interesting. Um, okay. I guess kind of moving on from that. Are there any games that are coming up or coming out? I'll actually I'll include your own here because I'm realizing I haven't asked about that. But yeah, any games that are coming up or coming out that you're excited about?
Yeah. Yeah, so so I've been working on some stuff in the background, and that's been a bit on that's slowed down a little bit just because I've been busy with like day job work
Hmm.
recently. But in terms of stuff that I am excited for, uh, I have been hmm I feel like I Yeah. So I've been curious about what the Confluence team have been up to. I have a few friends who work on that. And so this is more about like, hey, what are they what are they up to?
What are they up to?
Um yeah, yeah. And the little bits of it I've seen has been like pretty interesting. But like it seems like such a big thing, right? Like
Uh-huh.
they're writing a lot. And so that is like I'm just curious how it all comes together, right? Like it seems like such a huge project. So that's about curiosity and like seeing what my friends have been up to. And also um in terms of like a game that I'm keen to for it to come out fully and have at the table. Stewpot is one that I'm
Yes.
really looking forward to, like bringing like the final thing to like other people, and not just because I wrote a stretch goal for it,
Oh hell yeah.
um, but but like I've play tested, I guess, because it hasn't been fully released. I played several bits of the game, and it's always been a lot of fun. And I think would be a really great fit for a lot of people who um, uh, familiar with like D&D and like classic fantasy stuff, and like would be a great little on ramp to like other types of games through Steelpot. So I'm really excited about getting to bring that to the table here locally. I've been trying well, no, I've been trying. I would like to try and like do more like uh games locally, and like try and like you know um spread the word on like more indie games in and around KL PJ. And I think Steelpot would be a great addition. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Stewpot's amazing. I
Hmm.
I first played Stewpot years ago when I was first getting into indie games, and
Hmm.
it's wonderful. I'm glad that it's like getting a full Evil Hat like laid out release. I think that's gonna be wonderful
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Um, okay. I think with that we'll hop into the news. We have
Hmm.
two stories this week. I think we can probably get through both of them and then take a break. I think that'll work pretty well time wise. Um,
Sure.
so I'm gonna bring in Cordis the newsbird. Cordis coming in from coming in late with her coffee. um, uh, yeah. Uh, and okay. So let me do this really carefully because I don't want people to see the pornography that I'm subscribed to on Patreon. Uh, uh, so yeah, we gotta look at Patreon. Hang on, I'm gonna try and just like hover it over here. There we go. That'll work. Okay. So, recently, those of you who are frequent skill check SFX, yeah, rolling my deception to make you all think that I'm normal. Um, but a while back, I talked about how One More Multiverse was shutting down. They were not able to maintain their servers. The fees were getting too expensive, um, and they were struggling to keep everything together and active, and so they were shutting down completely. They had like 90 days from I think sometime into February. No, it wouldn't have been February. It was like May. I think it was May, sometime in May. Um, and it was sad because I really like One More Multiverse. I think it's a pretty strong virtual tabletop. Like, for those who don't know, One More Multiverse is a like 2D 2D pixelated uh virtual tabletop, which has like a very, it's like if Habbo Hotel or Club Penguin or what's another example? Oh gosh, that's probably those are probably the best two. Like if that
Yeah.
was a virtual tabletop, if you had like physical space and like even the potential for like text chat as a function in a VTT. Um, and it was really great. I really enjoyed what playtests and games I played with that. It had a very like large, pretty much the last thing that was done with it in its previous form. Large Yazeba's bed and breakfast module, really great Blade and Sorcery, Blades in the Dark module. That's a video game. Uh, um, but yeah, so now, they're on Patreon, which is neat. They are going to be launching on August 5th. Um, and yeah, there's some interesting kind of quirks to this, which is that basically I kind of looked through these to get where it was, like to get the stuff that you basically had access to before uh this change. You're going to be looking at like $15 a month. Although it does seem like maybe there's more than there was previously, but also like regions and lighting tools. This was a thing that was a basic tool in the previous version. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I I'm curious about the like ethics or legality behind like, okay, so I paid for the Zaba's thing or the Blades in the Dark thing, but now I have to pay $15 a month to access like all of the tools that I previously had with it. Um, but I don't think anyone's going to be suing these people for that, and I don't think it's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
Um, if this is what they need to keep things together. Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, it's always tough because um yeah, the alternative would be like this just doesn't come back, right? Like I think um uh like they probably, like it's a really tough decision to put stuff behind the paywall that wasn't there before. But then again, like with the the way the industry has been like recently, um not just in like tabletop games, but like in video games, which this is like very much adjacent to, in terms of, especially in terms of like where they were probably getting funding from. I know they had a Kickstarter as well.
I think
Was it a
so. I can
Kickstarter? There
double
was
check
some
that.
crowdfunding thing, possibly before this. Um,
Sure.
so yeah, it's really tough. And I understand that it's a small team and it's really difficult to keep this running, right? Um, like this isn't just a one and done thing. There's a lot of ongoing costs with like servers and stuff. Um, so yeah, I'm very like understanding of like the way that they have to do these things. And also cognizant that like it's a really tough environment with funding for these sorts of projects currently. Um, so yeah, I don't know if anyone will be really like pissed off that
Yeah,
this has to happen. I think like if anyone um like is after what they were offering, they would be pretty understanding of like what the situation is, or at least I'd hope so.
me too. I would also hope so.
um yeah, yeah, it's just a tough reality where they you you can't hope to run give a lot of things out for free and then hope to convert them later. Like I can't remember what the pricing model was before this.
Basically
Was it just for
non-existent.
the modules? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Like
just for the
you'd pay for the
modules.
modules, but you'd have like the basic thing. You'd have pretty much everything available. Um, uh, if you even if you didn't pay for the modules, you could put custom stuff in, right?
Yeah, so it made,
Yeah.
in terms of like money, it made 17.5 million on, I don't think it was Kickstarter, it was some other crowdfunding site. Um,
Hmm.
and then it was just you paid for the Blades in the Dark pack and the Eusebius pack, and like that was basically
Hmm.
it. Which like, you know, I imagine that there are complicated factors involving like investors and stuff that explain why
Yep.
like they didn't go so hard immediately on like selling this to people.
Hmm.
But yeah, I hope that this is stable because I would really like to use this tool even if it's for like a month at a time. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's a really great tool. In fact, I'm literally gonna uh, uh I listen. I don't often do this with like things that aren't just like flat out indie, but it seems like these folks could use the help. So you should if you want to use OMM in like August, and then there's some like other stuff that doesn't really do anything. Uh, but yeah, uh, I recommend this. I really liked the old version, and I hope this sticks around. Currently, let's see, what are they making? Do they have that listed? No, okay, they don't have their current number of backers. Oh no, hang on, they have
Hmm.
yeah, 657 a month. I don't uh well, I am curious how much the hosting costs are, but yeah, either way, I hope they're able to make this work. Um,
Hmm.
because I do think this is a really neat tool, and yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I guess we can talk about our second story, which is I'm gonna be more mean about. Which is I think we'll start with the deadline, just because this was the original. Um, so it took me a while to fully understand what this is about, and like I had to like at first I thought this was an actual play, and then I realized it's not. So this is a John Hamm scripted true crime podcast about an actual disappearance that was connected to D&D by a complete fuck up detective. Um, so I'll just read what I have written down here because it's pretty much a paraphrase of like the information that's available. So it's a true crime scripted podcast about the real life disappearance of James Dallas Egbert and the detective William Deere who tried and failed to find him. The detective was a complete fuck up who interpreted D&D pins on Egbert's wall as a sign that he got lost in tunnels underneath the power plant. Egbert himself literally called William Deere a few days after he had basically given up on the case, making only that conclude. Wait, what? I don't know what this means. I was really tired when I read this. uh, only
They
making that
only
conclusion
made.
after dipping. Yeah. I think I just swapped two words. But yeah, I I get bad vibes from this in a lot of ways, but I'm not sure if I have any basis for them. Um,
Mhm.
I guess I'll kind of quickly go through. So first of all, John Hamm is playing the detective William Deere, and I'm like, John Hamm is kind of seen as like a smooth sort of guy, and I'm worried about this either being like pretty normal or like really offensive because like I
Mhm.
could see them being like, oh, this detective is trying his best to find this kid, but he can't find him. This kid's too slippery. It's like in reality, the guy didn't try at all. Um,
Mhm.
Will Wheaton is involved and is playing Gary Gygax. Emily Axford and Felicia Day are involved as someone or other. Um, and I also noted that John Hamm is buddy buddy with Bill Maher and involved in a fraternity hazing case, which doesn't really have anything to do with the show. It's just I wanted to bring it up because
Mhm,
it's an opportunity for me to talk about FNS culture. Um,
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I think I think it's newsworthy because of like the big names involved, right?
Yeah,
Um, and like the big names involved uh, are partly it this kind of like reminds me of like when serial um like all those true crime about all those true crime podcasts, right? Which I
yeah,
haven't really listened to. That's my podcast listening is like mainly like nerd shit or food podcasts.
hell yeah,
Um, uh, uh, so I'm not familiar with like true crime podcasts, but this feels like it might be going that way. And uh, even the even if you say that this is a scripted thing, right? Like um where they are providing the voices of the characters, or not characters but the people, right, that are involved in this. um yeah, I don't know whether this is like a reenactment thing, or this is, are they gonna like fictionalize the events somewhat, um
mhm.
because this is an actual thing, right?
Yeah,
In an actual event that happened. So like they could go like, my assumption was that this would be pretty cut and dry, and it's just use like some famous voices to do the reenactments, you know. Um, and potentially even like, I could see it, right? If you wanted to like fully utilize them, you would have John Hamm kind of like narrate it from the first person as like, hey, here's the framing device of like this investigator is putting his notes together about this case, and then someone else will then come in later with like context about like what else happened, right? That's possibly one way that like a documentary would do it. um and I think there's like a cultural moment around, um like it's really ironic to me that like this is a trying to create a cultural moment about something that created a cultural moment around D&D originally,
right, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a little it's a little mirrors reflected through mirrors.
yeah,
Yeah, I
except that it's like, okay, we are cool now.
yeah, we're cool now. We got John Hamm.
Yeah.
He's in movies and television. Uh, I there's like a lot of axes that I want to take this from, and like not all of
Mm,
them are productive. And I'm like trying to identify how I want to talk about this. I guess like okay, to start, like I kind of condensed the story of the kid who went missing. Um,
mhm,
but like I guess part of my like uh part of my trepidation with this, and I get this is like I think I'm like I'm a 25-year-old trans woman. Like
mhm,
I think I live in a very different context from people who are deeply invested in true crime. Uh,
mhm,
I mean, maybe I could have been right. Like uh, I think cis women my age are very invested in true crime, but like I'm aware enough of like how bad these things can get in real life that I'm
mhm,
like a little bit less kind of uh happy-go-lucky about them. And so
mhm,
like this kid was you know routinely bullied for being gay. Uh and people, when he disappeared, people thought I mean uh apologies. I hope no one I guess I'll give a content warning. Content warning: suicide. People thought he killed himself, right? Um,
Mhm.
and like this, I worry about I worry about the kind of reaching hand of like uh you know, triple P podcasting. I'm inventing that word. I don't think anyone's ever
Yeah, yeah,
said that. You know, but like really high end podcasting, looking at any situation, just being like, yeah, this is perfect. We should use this for content,
mhm,
capital C content. Put that in the slot. Put that in the gristle mill. Um,
mhm.
because I think that there are some things that like uh there are some fuck ups that should be taken more seriously than bringing in like the cast of fucking uh the cast of some like YouTube movie called like called like Nerd Attack 2 the Nerdiverse or whatever. Um it's like there are some things that are serious enough that you don't need to bring Will Wheaton and Felicia Day in
Mhm.
for um but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like I guess I can I definitely can see where you're coming from, right? Like this was a um eh, well, because with the additional context, like this person James Dallas Egbert went missing for a while,
Yeah.
right? And was eventually found. The uh, triggered like the satanic panic around D&D, but like they were still a person that was hurting, and ultimately they like, say, contact warning, right? Like they actually did end up committing suicide,
Yeah.
right? um and that is a tragic thing, and they were obviously dealing with something when they went missing, right? um and the fact that it got connected to this thing that made D&D a cultural moment, and something that uh like people still refer to as like the era of the satanic panic, right, around D&D. And like a lot of like nerds getting up in arms about like, hey, um uh becoming the basis of their identity as like oppressed nerds, right? For liking this thing that is benign, but got put under a uh, uh with a lot of misunderstandings and misapprehensions, like became like this scary thing, right? When it's just like nerds getting around to like play pretend. um and I think my worry is like similar to yours, that it will be about vindicating D&D when
Mhm.
it should be when it's about a person that was really hurting and like going through something, and like did not even like want any of this to to happen, right? This connection was just unfortunate.
Yeah.
um
Uh,
yeah.
that
And
also. Oh, sorry. Good.
yeah, and like it's really um like I think some of the trepidation around it is warranted, like regardless of who is involved, right? Like even if
Yeah.
you had like like a completely different group of people involved in this, you would still be like worried, maybe not from the production standpoint, but like how the current like D&D public would like try and talk about this case. You know what I mean? About like, oh look, like this guy was a fuck up, and like and actually D&D is cool and great, forgetting like that this happened, like that there was human tragedy at the center of this story, right? It's not about whether your corporate product was actually not uh, worthy of like being causing a satanic panic, but like, you know, it's about someone who like was going through something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's definitely rough, and I also like. I don't know. This is like maybe a bit of a stretch, but it is kind of, I think, part of my like uh like gut level discomfort with this, which is like
Mhm.
when I think about the like satanic panic around D&D, it's like that is not a separate thing. It is a like fundamentally what that was always about was parents and like uh you know American suburbanites being afraid of what their children were getting into and
Mhm.
the lack of contact they had with their children and
Mhm.
the um and a world that they didn't understand that they perceived as closing in on them. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that this show will do this. However, I do think that like true crime has an important role to play in the modern conservative framework of the like crime-ridden city in the U.S. Um,
Mhm.
and I worry. I worry that this is just like adding fuel to the fire that it's trying to piss on, right? Um, because it's part of that industry. It's part of the industry that creates this sort of fear.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Just food for thought. Um, but yeah, that John Hamm's a bad dude. Uh, I mean, unrelated to the project itself. Just okay. Let me. I wanted to. Part of why I wanted to talk about this story is literally just so I can talk about FNS because I think it's fucked up. So in the U.S.,
Hmm.
fraternity and sororities, like part of many initiation rituals for fraternity and sorority is like still creating a paddle and giving it
Mhm.
to giving it to an underclassman. And I'm like, that's how you wind up with dudes like John Hamm. Uh, his thing was like, him and some dudes, him and some other fraternity guys were hazing a guy, and they like beat the shit out of him. Um, and I just think that like I just think it's fucking wild that people in for reference, I have a master's degree in higher education administration, which is why I feel so strongly about this.
Mhm.
This is my area, so like I whenever I think about this dude, I feel really fucking nauseous. Like
Mhm.
the idea that you're gonna still give kids that are coming into college uh there should be no paddles in the room, right? Like you should
Mhm.
not be enabling this to such an absurd degree. Um, but yeah, kind of an unrelated point, but I still think it's important to bring up just because I mentioned the not the allegations against John Hamm,
Mhm.
the recorded the police documents on John Hamm. Uh, but yeah, that's all I got on the guy. It's just figured I'd bring that up.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Well, that is our news. I think we'll take a little break. How do you feel
Cool.
about 5 minutes?
Yeah. Sure.
Awesome. All right. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. We're back. Audiovore, I just wanted to. Audiovore in chat says the day I learned frats were real and not an absurd thing invented for movies was a scary day. So true. Uh, I also felt that way when I started working with FNS people, and I'm glad that I don't work with them anymore. Just say that. Anyways, we have emails. I'd love to have more. If people want to send emails to darlingdemonclips@gmail.com, we could use questions, because also, if you want to send questions in chat, I will also accept them there. I love answering questions on the show of the Dovecote. Oh, these are good. These are really good. These are from Duck. Ulysses Duckler. So, we have two hypotheticals. Oh, brother. Okay. So the first one is, someone invites you to be a player in a TTRPG game. Campaign length, any system, but probably D&D. If you can only ask the game leader or a player one question to suss out the vibe, what question do you ask? Oh. So you don't know what game it is, but you're assuming it's D&D, or like maybe Pathfinder, I guess, or something that's like popular. And you can only ask one question. Man. Creepier Wet's pretty good audio for. I like that one.
Creepier Wet.
I'm asking any transgenders. I really don't like the S on transgender, but it would be funny there. Yeah. I'm thinking about what I would ask.
Yeah, it's really difficult to boil it down to just one question, right?
Yeah.
Because like whether it could be about like figuring out the GM's vibe, if you're going in as a player, right? And it could be about figuring out the group's vibe. Maybe the one question I would ask is, do y'all like Rick and Morty?
I would look
Depending
at them.
on your question.
I would look at them with the most wet puppy eyes, and I would say, "Am I gonna be okay?" I do really like. Do y'all like Rick and Morty? That's a really good indicator. Man. Feel like...
how many pages of lore?
How many pages of lore? Something. There's got to be some way to determine like the fascism quotient of it. Which I guess is kind of like. I feel like the Rick and Morty one's great if you're trying to figure out the libertarianism quotient, but
Are Cybertrucks cool?
That's a pretty good one. How about that, Elon? My roommate has a horror story of a Pathfinder game he was playing in, and one of the players was playing Rick. What do you do if you're in that situation? I guess you leave, right? Or you try and like. That's always the thing that's like that's tough at tables that are kind of compromised by like one or more people, is that you either try and like uplift the table or you just leave, right? Like I've been at some really bad tables where I really like tried to play some just like fucking heater characters, and it was not worth it. But I feel like leaving is just better. I'm a really big advocate of like the no play is better than bad play philosophy. Like, I think there's some things that you can talk over with a group, but if something's like really bad, then it's better not to play at all. Like, if I don't know what's a good example. It's,
Yeah, like it's different if it's your existing friends who you realize they're like, oh, maybe I don't want to play games with these friends.
mm,
um, versus like you're meeting people through the game, right? That's a very different vibe. Like sometimes, like if it is with the existing friends and you realize, oh, okay, I like you as a friend, but like maybe not as like a RPG buddy, you know. Then there are different ways to like pivot it. Like maybe we should just play something else, you know. Um,
yeah,
or like have a discussion about like, hey, this is what I'm expecting from this game, and I see that we might be expecting different things, so like do we want to move towards like a compromise, or should we just play something else? We could
want to
get
play a
a
board game.
legacy game together. Yeah, like a legacy game could scratch some of the RPG itch um without being an RPG, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
real. Yeah, I think that's a good. Uh, I think fundamentally what this question like I kind of reject the framework of this question on some level. As much as I appreciate it as like a really fun hypothetical, because like
Yeah.
I think the the process of asking questions and discussing the game that you're playing should be one that runs before you start playing, during play, and after play.
Yeah.
And I think if you're living in a world where you believe you can only ask one question, I think you need to free yourself of that. um, which I think on some level people are, right? I think people are deeply
Mm.
afraid to bring stuff up, uh, you know, during play, between play. Um,
Mhm.
Also, I got a bird to bring to the. It's Apocrypha, the male bird. Some people be playing TTRPG at the table the same way they play Neverwinter Nights on the PC. So true.
Mhm.
All right, guys. So, you all are having fun at the tavern. I'm going up the stairs. I'm gonna, I'm gonna put a lock on the door to my room when I close it. I'm gonna put a spear. I'm gonna set up a spear like set up on the door. So if someone walks in here, they're gonna get speared through the head. I'm gonna use a pulley system to do that. I'm gonna open the window so I can escape if I hear anything. I'm readying my action to cast Fireball at the door if anyone knocks. Uh, this is your average like this is your average game store owner. Unfortunately, like unfortunately, the guys who are the worst at playing D&D uh, need to like make a third space about it, so that people will play D&D with them. Um, but yeah. Uh, Anyways, sorry. Enough rambling. Let me. Here we go. The next one from Duck. Imagine you have to add a fourth dove, but for certain reasons it can't go after Apocrypha. Where do you place the fourth dove? Well, that would rely on me like having another bit in the show, um,
Hmm.
and I don't know where that would be. I don't know what that would entail. Like recommendations could be interesting. Like I throw up like a thing that I think would be interesting, but also like the interview kind of covers that where I ask
Hmm.
the folks who I've on what games they'd like folks to check out. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like the fourth really like 5 minute actual play section in the Dovecote that goes between the news and mail, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna roll a 1d6. Okay, you have a +2 on that. All right, that's a 7 to 9. Okay, so you get what you wanted, but you fall down a pit, and then just move on. Um, yeah, that's pretty funny. Um, that's a good hypothetical though. I don't think the show needs another segment. I think we do well enough with what we have. Um, at least on most weeks. Most weeks where we have goblin questions. Unfortunately, I hate to say it.
You could.
Oh, good.
Oh, sorry. So go ahead.
I was just saying we don't have our VIP question asker who asks like 10 questions every week, unfortunately, because they tend to be ready for nighttime episodes.
Mhm.
But yeah, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, probably you could just have an additional dove for the break.
True, break dove. That
Yeah.
would be
Hmm.
maybe in season two when maybe after episode 50 when I like I have actually been thinking about maybe revamping the set after episode 50. Um, but that's kind of a secret. Fourth dove
Hmm.
is blood brick in a dove costume. So true. Channel point redeem for a 1 minute actual play improv segment. Yeah, it's like 1 minute per 1,000 points. So if you do like 60,000, you get a whole hour of AP, and I have to like scrounge up a game really quickly to to try and entertain you all. Um, yeah, good questions though. Thank you, Doc. Do you have any questions from the chat? I'm taking questions from the chat, from email. Please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we might wrap up like a half hour earlier, or so just because we don't have that many questions. Eclipse, I could force you to GM for 230 minutes at that price. That's a good amount of time. Um, that's honestly less
Yeah,
than
it's
I.
almost 4 hours.
Yeah, but that's still less than I'd assume. I feel like. Um, although I guess like the lower I make the price, the worse that would get. If I made that 500, what would that be? That would be 560 hour minutes, which is like it's like 9 hours of AP. That would be so dangerous. That's really scary, Audiovore. Um, yeah. Uh, I'm trying to think if I have any questions for you or anything, any like topics I want to bring up. Uh, uh, oh yeah, I'd love to talk about because I know you mentioned this a little bit. Um, and I like when I have folks on the show who are not from the U.S. Because I tend to have very U.S. based guests. I'd love to ask about like specifically the TTRPG scene in Malaysia if you kind of feel like you have a beat on that.
Yeah, I don't really have a good view on it. I have been mainly playtesting and stuff online for the past few years because of like the whole pandemic. So I only really started going out and about to like see what's been happening in the past year. So that's not true. Before the pandemic, um, like in early 2020, right? Like in January, right? I and we did some stuff online. There used to be a indie game meetup that would get together and play indie games. And I miss that a lot. And that's been something that in the back of my mind is like, oh, I wish we could bring something like that back because right now it's still very dominated by D&D, and to a lesser extent Pathfinder and Call of Cthulhu. It's very D&D focused, but there are people who are running like non D&D games. Like it's definitely available to you. Um, it's just that like the general like default is still D&D, which is I guess no different than most other places. Um, uh, like you know in the US or elsewhere as well.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So I think that's just a common struggle of like trying to get like indie games uh to the table. Uh, but yeah, like there's definitely some appetite for it. It's just like I think everyone is kind of uh uh what's the word separated, right?
Yeah,
Like you might know like a couple of people here, and most people that I've met who play indie games tend to play online with other non-Malaysians. Um, which is something that I do as well, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that me too. And I think it would be cool to like have some more events that could like get everyone to kind of like meet up, because I think when that starts to happen, that's when like fun, interesting things tend to start happening.
Yeah, there's a lot to be
um,
gained from like doing this stuff in person, right?
mhm. Well, not even in person, right? Like potentially even just like meeting up online, right?
Yeah.
Um, just being aware of like, hey, you're not alone, and you don't have to deal with like time zones if you don't want to. um uh because if I want to play with people outside of Southeast Asia, then like, I either have to stay up really late at night or wake up really early in the morning, um often, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like just being able to like get a more of a local scene together would be cool. um there are a bunch of like really cool like game designers working from in Malaysia, um and there's a few Malaysians who are overseas. Like I was in Australia, so that I know there's a few in Australia and there's a few in the UK as well. um Weirdly enough, I don't know many Malaysians in the US who are working on games. um maybe like second generation Malaysians, right? Like
Yeah.
if their parents are from Malaysia, maybe. Um, yeah, but yeah, I think it's pretty similar to a lot of places. D&D is kind of like the default, and then there's a bunch of people, but we're not really uh uh well connected to each other. Um, but that's something I hope will change. Like hopefully, um, you I might have to be the change I want to see in the world. So Kenwen used there used to be a local organizer who ran these like indie game events every month, and that was great. And then he had to stop doing that because he got really busy with work, and no
Yeah.
one else has picked up that torch. So maybe it's time for myself or someone else to do that, because I missed that. That was a really well run event that he used to run. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds neat. I hope that you're able to I hope that you or someone else are able to really land that, 'cause that sounds wonderful. Um
Yeah, yeah. Like it's been great. So I've been trying to do some conventions and events this year. So I did a comics arts festival. And then I mentioned the Asian Board Games Festival last month. Not last month, this month, like a couple of weeks ago. So I've been trying to do that and like, meet more people locally, get like the not just my games out there, but like just the idea of like indie games out there. Like at the Comic Arts Festival, I saw there was a lot of fan art for like Baldur's Gate 3. And then like, I'm sure a lot of people who are interested in that might want to make even if they only want to play D&D, that can be fine too. Like they might not even know that there are people who run D&D in Malaysia.
yeah.
Um, so even just getting them, you know, on the far end of the treadmill that eventually leads to indie games, that is uh can be good, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've thought a lot about, which is that like uh as a purveyor of like of like fantasy smut TTRPGs, like
Mm,
Baldur's Gate 3 is like maybe one of the best things that could have happened, because it's like, oh, people are horny about fantasy right now in a
hmm
way that's like really good. Very very different situation, but I think that like uh there is I think some potential for like that sort of windfall that comes with like bigger things like that.
hmm
Um, yeah, and I was also kind of curious. I guess like how much involvement do you have? Because I know there's like a very big like um like ever since like a couple of years ago, perhaps earlier, like a very big like international like Southeast Asian TTRPG
Mm,
movement. Kind of curious like how much involvement you have with that, like uh, how much you identify with that at all.
yeah. So I don't really identify with it that strongly. Um, not I think I'm part of the community, right?
Hmm.
Like I know a lot of people who do identify with that label. And I think I've tried to like, um make connections, like not just in Malaysia, but like in Southeast Asia as well, right? Like when we do Playtest Zero, every other week, we have some people from like the Philippines and Singapore, um, not so much from elsewhere. Would really love to like get to know more people in like say Thailand and Indonesia. Um, and elsewhere in Vietnam as well. But yeah, it's just hard to like connect through, get maintain like figure out and then maintain those connections, right? Because like everyone's so busy, no one's doing this full time. So and then you just have to be very understanding that like not everyone can keep up uh uh like online friendships so easily, right?
Yeah.
Um and the main reason why I don't really identify with the RPGC like label hashtag or whatever is not because I'm opposed to it. It's just like it happened when I think it came about when I still was figuring out where I was. I had just moved back. And so like I started putting out like my tabletop RPGs in 2018 maybe, when I was still in Australia, and I hadn't really connected much to like the tabletop RPG designers in Australia. And then because I knew I was leaving, I was like, oh, I didn't really make lasting connections there until like later on, like meeting some other people like Logan, um, and Patty, people like that, and Melody, people like that. I only met them in like 2019. And V, who I've worked with a couple of times now. Um, so I didn't feel that connection. So I wouldn't call myself like an Australian tabletop games designer. Um, but then after moving back, I was still trying to figure out like, do I want to do this a lot? And when that whole thing started, um, um, like I was not really involved at the time as a tabletop RPG creator. So I felt kind of like weird about like claiming the moniker, and also um uh like like I would say I'm a Southeast Asian game designer, game maker, but I don't use the RPGC label a lot. And I guess part of that was um was just like it felt like there was a community of people who already knew each other and were exchanging ideas and work, and I hadn't really fully integrated and connected back to that community.
Right.
um and then by the time I had done that, then like it felt a little bit like we had kind of transcended, not transcended, but like, hey, like RPGC was really useful for like connecting us to each other, but we are now connected, and like what do we want to do? We want to, like, a lot of us want to be seen for our own work rather um than just like, hey, like you're like a Southeast Asian game designer. It's like, yeah, but I'm also like more than that, right? Like, so I think there's been um uh yeah, like tricky things around like claiming labels and identities, which is is always a something that I and a lot of us struggle with. Um so yeah, I never really used the label directly, but I'm not opposed to it. It just kind of like, just like, oh, like the moment kind of passed for me, right?
Yeah,
Um,
something that kind of lived
yeah, it's very funny.
its own life.
Yeah, and I guess the big thing was that there was like a couple of like scandals with like some of the RPGC members at earlier at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and so I was like, man, not to say I don't want to be connected to it, but like I could see what was happening, and like as I was trying to like figure out what the dynamics of the community was, right? Um, and and yeah, I think that colored some of the um like my personal like this is not to say anything about like the people who use the label because it obviously was useful. um yeah, it's my own personal baggage, I guess, about labels.
I think that's totally okay. I think that's totally
Yeah,
fair
yeah,
and
yeah.
valid. And I'm sure that folks understand that, like, you know, this is not a this is not an indictment of a movement that was like very wonderful and very helpful for
Yeah.
some folks, and you know, uh, very we're talking. This is you know, very personal.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and like the privileges I have that like other people in RBGC don't, right? Because of my access to being able to like even like being able to start a Kickstarter, right?
mhm.
Because I have an Australian bank account, right? Or like if you're Singaporean, you're fine. You can start you can start Kickstarters. You're Singaporean, but like that's the only country in Southeast Asia that is that has access to that,
Wow.
right? Um, yeah, so yeah, it's more about myself navigating what it was like to come back and reclaim an identity or like a label of like being back in Malaysia and being back in being Southeast Asian, rather than like a returning immigrant from Australia, right?
Yeah,
um
I can imagine that can be
yeah.
tricky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And by the time I'm like, oh, I feel comfortable saying that now. I was like, oh, we haven't really used the label that much.
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah. And but I would say that the community is still really strong. Strong in the sense that like we support each other, uh like with the playtest zero stuff. Like we're connected to each other when playtesting each other's work, helping each other, um, talking about each other's work. I think there's a little bit of like just because like the we haven't used the hashtag a lot recently doesn't mean that we aren't like building up the community, um,
Yeah.
and like building up each other. So it's been really good to like kind of like connect with other creatives in the region. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like hashtags are very useful for like finding people, but it sounds
Hmm.
like, you know, once once a community finds each other, then you're just
Yeah.
kind of coexisting, like, and it, you know, it doesn't make a it doesn't make an imprint on social media, but it, you know, it's still real.
Yeah, and I should really say like I talk about all this, but like I think one big like elephant in the room that we are not talking about is that like Twitter has gone to shit, right? And a lot of
Yeah,
people
true.
left. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a huge part of it. That a lot of people have like drastically changed their relationship to social media and to hashtags, and like finding community through social media, right? That has changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that is very very true. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. I think I'm not seeing any questions in chat or in my email, so
Mhm.
I think we might wrap up there. I also have to like go eat something, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have not had breakfast yet. So I think
Yeah, go have breakfast.
we'll wrap up here. Do you have
Mhm.
anything you want to direct folks towards that I have not already linked? Love to throw folks
Yeah,
there.
no, no. Yeah, yeah. Just check out my stuff on itch.io. And if you're interested in playtesting with other people in online. Um, every other fortnight. We try to be a, a very inclusive, welcoming community. And our motto, like our unofficial motto by Arisa Santiago, who's another really great game designer, is "There's no draft too rough." For playtest 0, we've playtested some scribbles. It's just like 7 sentences on a Google Doc. Let's play test that, right? And one of the fun things that we love is what I've started calling PPT 0, where people just come and present PowerPoint presentations of like what they plan to do with like game design. Even if you don't have a full game, you can still make a presentation about it, and we will go through it together. So if
Yeah.
you are interested in that kind of that kind of play, that kind of nonsense, drop me a line. Um, and yeah, we playtest every other week.
Hell yeah. When you said fortnightly, I tried to contain it. I cannot hear that word without thinking of Fortnite, and it's really bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Thank y'all for watching. Who do I have on next week? Oh gosh, I've not even thought about that. Cause I just woke up. It's 7:29. Ooh, Nick Butler, who was gonna be on a while back and didn't really wind up being on, will be on next week. So expect Nick.
Cool.
And then the week after I have Vel Mini, which I'm very excited about.
Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
Tune in next week. It will probably be the normal time, and not that I mind. I actually liked it. A good morning episode is good. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna raid Vixie Bombay.
Thanks for
Go
having
say
me.
hi, and take care, everyone. Bye.
Remember,
See ya, bye.
if you don't like what you see, you can change it. It's up to you, really. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun!